Welcome, Black Kings and Queens, to Black Mind Chronicles. I'm your host, Chase Jackson. This podcast is a journey into the questions, stories, and mindsets of Black men and women on the topic of mental health and mental illness. We all often talk about so many things, but the one thing that matters, our own well being. So let's start that conversation. And in today's show, we're going to discuss Black men and mental health. We're going to speak on programming when it comes to mental health. We're going to speak on grief and loss of a parent and speak on the different coping mechanisms thereof. We're going to talk about healthy male role models, the George Floyd 2 year anniversary, social media, moving in love, and understanding what it means to be a man. So, my guest for this show is Leo McAfee Jr. Leo is from El Campo, Texas. He's a mechanical engineer. He's an avid reader and mental health advocate. He's committed to self love and discovery of himself and for others in maintaining their own well being. So, Leo, thank you once again for agreeing to be on the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
Good deal. Like, I know it's been a busy week, an eventful week, and you could have been other places, but I'm glad you chose the Black Mind Chronicles podcast.
Oh yeah, I had to stop by and talk to you for a little bit.
All right, so Leo, let's jump into the first topic, which is programming. When you say you want to talk about programming, what do you mean? Is that programming of the mind or what we've watched growing up kind of programmed our own mental health over the years as black men? What are you referring to?
Yeah. So when I speak about programming, I'm talking about how you naturally operate, right? Because we, excuse me, we all are raised. Whoever we're raised by could be your biological parents, adoptive parents, family members, whoever, right? But what really matters is what type of what. How did you gain your definition of what manhood is?
Mhm.
And that's what I mean by programming. So for me personally, I have a great father that raised me, uncles, deacons in church, all those things, and just men in community.
Mhm.
And they really shaped the way I move through the world and the way I walk as a black man. And it's I thoroughly believe that every little black boy needs a black man in his life, regardless of how that boy decides to live his life, sexual orientation, degrees, if he wants to go to school, whatever he decides to do, he needs a healthy black male role model somewhere in his life to show him the way. And that's what I have for myself. And I would say, it's really changed the way, or really shaped and molded the way that I walk through the world, like I said. And I don't have to look very far from people I grew up around to see the difference. Like having a dad in the house
Mhm.
is completely different than having just men in the community.
No, and that makes sense. And for those who still don't have a father figure or father in the house, like you said, having just those role models around can make a big difference still. It's having someone that sees you, knows you, and still has your best interest at heart.
Hmm.
Like I guess the adage says, it takes a village to raise a child. I mean, the village is still important for that child's upbringing, as long as someone can hold them accountable and teach them right from wrong.
Yes, sir.
Um, so back when I was, I guess a few jobs ago, I just got into like my true corporate jobs, right? So I was sitting there wearing, suits and ties or just looking, professional. And I was at an event and another black brother walked up to me. He said, "Hey, this is what these young men need to see. Just other individuals in suits and ties and in other professions other than, the rap, basketball, football, that they believe that are their only options in life. There has to be something else, but this is what they need to see more of. So when you talk about those black male role models, that's what I envision is those who are out in the community doing what they do, but also can shine a light on other avenues that are available to our young men."
Yes, sir. I agree. And also you got to think about it like this. Historically speaking, our people, well, we're black men, so we'll speak about us. Through a lot of our history in the United States, um, one, we were stripped of every version of masculinity that we knew, right? So the masculinity and the version of manhood that we know now, it was defined by white men. That's when they say like white supremacy, um, all these things that hold white men at the highest level of society. Those things have had an effect on us.
Yep.
And then two, we've been seen as entertainment for people, right? But we're so much more than our bodies, so much more than anything we can do, like sing, dance, whatever, right? Like those, there are people that can do that, and no knock to them. I enjoy their work too, right? But I think it's very important to understand that the original people of the planet are us, the original engineers, like all the, because during my time in school, I remember reading through my books and reading about the equations like Bernoulli's equation and Stokes' theorem and all these things from mathematics. And I thought, well, there's no pyramids, there's no ancient writings on the walls in European areas. All that stuff is in
Africa,
Egypt, and in West Africa, South Africa, and Ethiopia, and all these other places. So they got it from us. And I think now we're in a place where a lot of us are starting to realize who we really are, how we can change the way we're viewed, and really take back hold of us, of men, of how we decide to talk, how we decide to treat ourselves, treat our women, treat just everyone in our communities.
And that's what happens when you have our base identities, quote unquote, taken away. We can be easily told who we are. If we don't know that we've been descended from kings and queens, then it's easy for someone to tell us, oh, you're worthless, and for us to believe it because we've never known anything different.
And even if, because everybody wasn't the king, everybody wasn't the queen, but
True.
everybody had a role in society, an active role in those pre-colonial societies in Africa. And because the information is there, it was just taken from us and hidden from us for all this time. But I read a lot about history, read a lot about cultures and things like that. And there's just a huge gap between where we were pre-colonial and then post-colonial.
No, very true. Very true. I always get to stay well read, have a few great books. So Step from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, White Fragility, and don't get me started on the name. I have to go get the author. But plenty of books, of course, Malcolm X. There's lots of great books I picked up and just great reads and great finds. But good for the culture.
Oh yeah. It's good to read those and get a better understanding, because I love history. I've always loved history, and the lies that they tell in these textbooks and the way they're trying to manipulate it to where our children, well, when we have kids one day, like they won't know it unless me and you tell our kids. And that's how it had, but it was already like that for me. Like I remember, because I'm from El Campo, it's a small town, Southeast Texas by Houston, right? So there's always been a Juneteenth celebration. And I remember being in whatever grade that was, it was elementary school, but we were talking about Texas history, and they didn't say, when they got to the time period of 1865, they didn't say anything about Juneteenth. And I was in there just asking the teacher, like, ma'am, we have a whole parade and park thing, celebration, there's speeches, there's performances, there's commemorations of this day, y'all, and you're not saying anything about it. Like when I was little, and I got in trouble for it.
What'd she say? What was said?
She said, "Oh, we're not going to talk about that. That's not part of the curriculum." And she didn't even know what it was, and she was from the town, so that's even more disturbing.
But you can be from the town, but still not from the culture. That makes sense for her. I mean, especially if she was white. Yeah, that's not the culture. She don't care two things about it.
So that's what I'm saying. We'll just have to continue to teach our kids on our own. But I feel like with technology and with enough books and everything, we'll get our kids right to have enough of an understanding.
Right. And this is where honestly grassroots movement matters. So we need to put ourselves into these places of, I'll say, power and influence, especially when it comes to even the smaller positions in our education system, to where we can be there when these curriculums are written. Because clearly we're not there. And if we were there, Juneteenth would have been in the history books by now. Some of these slaves weren't actually slaves, would have been dismissed.
Yeah.
We're not in those places that matter to our future education. The same thing when it comes to voting laws. I mean, we should be once again hitting the road, asking people, letting them know, informing them of their voting rights and what the voting amendments and ballots what they mean. Because as someone who works in the legal field per se, I can read legalese. Not everybody can. And I still
Mhm.
had like issue. Hey, okay, so what exactly is this saying again? So, if I have issues myself reading some of this stuff, I know somebody coming through that hasn't had to practice just won't understand and will click anything.
Oh yeah.
So we need to have a better grassroots and just be more involved and give ourselves a reason why we should care about once again voting and why voting is important to our local communities.
Especially in the local.
Mhm.
And then something else too, I've really took pride in doing, and it's a passion thing for me is physical health, right? Like feeding not only mental and physical, they go hand in hand, but just really making the change. Because when my dad passed, he passed a heart attack
Mhm.
in December of 2020, so a little while ago. But
Condolences.
he, yeah, thank you. But his diet wasn't together. I was trying to help him, trying to give him tools and tips and everything, but he just wanted to do what he wanted to do. And at that point, you can't do anything, right?
Right.
But for those family members that do listen, I tell them everything I know and tell them about not eating fried foods, not eating processed foods, drinking water, enough water a day, eating your vegetables, eating your fruits, taking your vitamins, walking, some type of exercise,
Mhm.
maintaining maintaining your physical figure as you get older, and stretching, doing mobility, all those things. I tell my parents, I tell my cousins, my older cousins, younger cousins, all that, and try to make sure that they all understand.
Mhm.
Because what good is the information if I'm not helping out the next person?
Right.
It doesn't make sense to do that.
Right. Very true. And yes, stay active, go to the doctor, go sooner than later, go regularly. I go to my annuals. So even if I only go once a year, I'll go just every year annually, make sure everything is good. And
Hmm.
of course I have to keep up everything, do the weight loss, all that good stuff too. So but yeah, stay especially with us, we have an issue of going to the doctor, especially black men.
Yeah, there's a
Um
stigma around that.
Mhm.
And honestly, I think because there's some older black men that have passed recently in my family and just out in community,
Mhm.
and I think sometimes how much of their pain were they really just taking on and not telling anybody about?
Mhm.
Because my dad he was expressive and loving and all those things, right? But he didn't like bothering anyone,
Mhm.
and I was going through a couple of difficult situations at the time of his passing, so.
Mhm.
Just sometimes I think, well, would he would he have told me more if I didn't have as much on my plate, or did he even know how to say like, "Oh, son, I'm going through this and I have this going on," like not wanting to add to other people's plates,
Right. So
but
I could count that as two things. One, some parents don't want to bother their kids with their own issues.
mm,
That's one thing, which I can't fault. That's your parent. You're their child. They want to have you be free of their burdens, right? But
yeah,
two, and I can't even say this is just a black thing. This is almost a human thing, male thing, where society has told men, period, that we don't cry, we don't become vulnerable, and we don't express our emotions like that. So some things we do bury, some pain we just rub dirt in it and keep moving on. Be a man about it and just walk it off, and
yeah,
that's not always great. Let's move on down to body positivity or dysmorphia.
yeah,
Unless we've already spoken on it. When it comes to body positivity, one, I hear that as being more positive about who you are, loving the skin you're in. but also doing things to better yourself, which I believe still goes back into seeking help, going to the doctor, and getting yourself together to live longer for you. But what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I agree with all of what you said. But I just wanted to touch on one thing here. For me personally, as a black man, um, I've dealt with body dysmorphia myself as my body has fluctuated and changed throughout the years. Um, so it started off like when I was around 11, 12, when my dad had his stroke. Thought he was going to die. Like all these things were going on. And I just went to food and nobody stopped me. Nobody said anything. They knew that I was going through it, and it helped. In addition to like talking to me and helping me talk through things, right? But they just gave me food too. Um, so I dealt with that, dealt with bullying, dealt with shame for my body, all those things. And then when I got to college, it stopped happening as much. So the perspective of shame and dealing with those feelings of shame and getting blamed for my weight, for issues and things like that,
Mhm.
kind of dissipated a little bit. But I think still sometimes to this day I sit back and think what how many other black men go through this, and then also how many of us didn't have a loving mother and father to talk us through it, because all the issues with body dysmorphia that comes from outside of my house. I didn't. My mom and dad always told me, "Son, you're beautiful. Hey, if you're gonna be big, just be sexy." Like all this stuff, like the affirmations and things. Like my
Uh-huh.
parents are really, really comical and affirming, right?
Mhm.
So, but it was when I got out into school, like kids could be mean, people can be mean, like,
Mhm.
and just dealing with those things. Um, so even after like, because I'm 29 now, like even all these years later, over a decade later, things still bother me, right? And sometimes when I look in the mirror, I still see that 400 pound version of myself
Mhm.
that was just hurting and worried about being accepted, the regular things that teenagers worry about.
Yep.
But it was at such a chronic degree, um, for me personally.
Right. So let's jump into coping mechanisms then. And then how to pull yourself out of. So talk about your ways of coping with it once you knew what it was, and then the way you dug yourself out of that. I know you said going away, moving away to college helped, but before that, what ways did you get through it?
Yeah, so the I will never forget this day. I think I was like 16 when I was at my heaviest, and I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he said, "Son, either you're gonna sit back and let this control you, or you're gonna get up and do something about it. You choose. Simple as that." And he let me cry and do whatever I need to do, vent. He said, "All right, once you're done with that, get up. We got to do something about it, because I don't want you to be lost in this world. I don't want you to be taken advantage of in this world because you don't love yourself." And I heard that at 16, and it really fueled the fire within me, right? So I started working out. I went to we have a I live in I was living in a small town, so we have like the open stadium where you can run bleachers, you can
Yep.
run laps on the track, all that. And
Hmm.
I would just go out there, put my whatever music I was listening to at the time, put the headphones on, take my shoes off, and just run. Like sometimes I would run like to like 11, 12 at night, and I would start like before the sun went down.
Hmm.
And it was so therapeutic, because at when I was running, nothing else mattered. When I was working out, nothing else mattered. Nothing of what nobody else said, none of that. It was just me in the field, me and myself, me and my thoughts, me and God. Um, and then another coping mechanism I have, and still you have to this day, is music.
Okay.
I play all brass instruments. I started on tuba, and just worked my way up
Okay.
up all of the instruments. And I would make songs. play songs. I was section leader, all those things. And again, that was just another space where nothing that nobody else said mattered. It was me spreading my love through my music and through my art and painting in a way.
That's real. I didn't even know that about you. We know each other for a bit,
Yeah.
man. Last two. So let's talk about social media real quick. So when it comes to social media and mental health, especially being a black man in this world, I come across things all the time on the internet where society is telling you how you should be or how we should be as black men. The TV shows we see are demasculating the black man. Is it just me that's seeing that, or have you noticed it?
I don't really watch TV like that,
Mhm.
but what I think what's happening is like we spoke about at the beginning of this. There's a shift going on where we're reclaiming different pieces of ourselves from
Mhm.
pre-colonialism, and a lot of that has to deal with sexuality too. So I know there's a sexuality that we were taught from church and from all those things, but to me and to most people, I would say sexuality is a spectrum, right? That you can make your own decisions, do what you want to do, whatever, right?
Right.
And you say there's a lot of black men, there's a lot more like gay black men or non-hetero black men on media. Yes, that's true, but that's because representation is important. Because if you look into the LGBTQIA plus community, like their history,
Mhm.
they've been oppressed too. Like
Oh yes,
not to say
wholeheartedly.
like,
Yes,
whose
yes.
words better, whatever. Like we all suffered. Suffering is suffering, but they've they've suffered and they deserve to be represented on every platform, just like everybody else does. But it is still dehumanizing and demasculating of in a lot of media spaces to black men. So, and that's not by having a lot of non-heterosexual black men. That's putting they dehumanize us by putting us in a light that is not productive, right?
Okay.
They always cast us, well, historically, like TV shows cast us as the thug or
Hmm.
just not a present father, like all these different things that are very detrimental. And it's powerful because it goes into programming, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a significant amount of little black boys that don't have a father for a bunch of reasons. And then they go to TV and they go to social
Right.
media, see that, and then they say, well, oh, that's what a man is. That's what's supposed to be. And
Mhm.
then they get this misinterpretation of what manhood actually is.
Right, and maybe that is where I was headed. So there's those roles that we're seeing more as the help, honestly. So we're still
Mhm.
um the janitor in the office. We're always the clerk somewhere.
Mhm.
Still the valet here and there. Very few other shows actually show us in those CEO positions.
Mhm.
Um, or those positions of influence in other companies where we're truly holding down our own. Like
Mhm.
I would love to see the Black Apprentice out there. So that's what Trump showed The Apprentice. I used to want to be on The Apprentice. I did until that incident with Dr. Randall Pinkett happened, where the only black winner of The Apprentice was asked to be runner up to his white counterpart, and Dr. Pinkett said no. Like, this is not The Apprentice. This is The Apprentice. We're not gonna play. He's pretty much. She said he's not gonna play second fiddle. Like, this is his
Mhm.
moment. He took it. He claimed it.
Yeah.
But still, it was still like the audacity of Trump to even ask, "Would you be, play second fiddle? Would you share a spotlight with the person that didn't even win?"
Yeah, like we're not doing that.
Right, but it's things of that nature that somebody didn't take that moment to heart and say no. What would have the rest of Black America thought? That it's okay to share the spotlight with this white girl over here who didn't deserve it.
Yeah. Like I feel like a lot of this stuff, especially just media in general, like
Mhm.
we people are still taking into consideration white folks' comfortability, which I could care less about, right? And that's why I speak the way I speak and I do the things I do and I live the way I live because my comfortability is top priority. as a Black man. Like the stuff we're talking about, and just as a human being, we could take race, gender, all that off of it. As a human being, it was one of your main responsibilities is to be comfortable within yourself and in your is how you operate.
Right.
But the thing is, like, it's psychological, because if you don't have a father in your life, or even if you do, still, like, you can still have all these different influences. It just depends on what you pick up on as a person. If it's negativity, it's dysfunction, all these things, you could get to a point in your life, and I've seen it. You can get to a point in your life where you don't even think functionality in a household and a family is a thing.
All right. So let's talk about moving in love. You brought that one up. What do you mean by moving in love?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Baptist church, right? And there was always a lot of talk, and still is when I go home. There's always a lot of talk about faith and about God and about love, and how we are all God's body, we're all God's children. To me, whoever, whatever you want to believe, if you don't, hey. But I think there's an underlying thing between every religion, every culture on this planet is love. And love is not just a singular, like, it doesn't have a singular meaning. It can mean a lot of things. And what I like to look at it as, from an engineering, from a mathematical perspective, is moving in harmony, moving in peace, moving in tranquility, moving in the natural order of what feels right to every single person. And that doesn't mean it's chaotic. That doesn't mean it's out of place. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means that everyone is accepted. Everyone can say and express themselves how they naturally want to. Right. And that's why I say move with love, move with purpose, move with intention, move how your body just naturally wants you to do so. And that's what I mean by that.
I like that.
There wouldn't be any wars, any issues, anything like that. And I think whatever point we started as humans, we all started with the same story, with the same love, with the same unity. And then over time, things just happen. And now we're here. And now we're at the spot where we're consciously saying, hey, we got to do something. We got to get back to harmony. We got to get back to peace. We got to get back to love. And that's the story of humanity.
Let's jump down real quick to George Floyd. It is the 2-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd. And the president today just went and signed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which gives greater, he said, modernization to police. But Leo, I want your thoughts on these past 2 years. What have you seen? What's been going through your mind the past 2 years from George Floyd's death?
So May 25th is a very complicated day for me, because not only is it the day of this tragic event in our country, is also the day a few years ago that I had to exit a relationship that was very difficult. So every year this time is this very interesting day for me. But regarding just the George Floyd subject itself, we can do all these policies and changes and lip service and all those things. But what I'm more concerned about is the mindset and the effect of how people see me and you, right? Because I've dealt with people being afraid of me my entire life, because I've always been large. I'm 6 foot tall. I wear hoop earrings. I got a beard. For all the reasons that a lot of people are afraid of it. Some people fetishize it. Like, it's a very complicated place to be as a Black man, especially being an engineer. I navigate these white spaces. There's just a lot that I deal with. But like I said, my main thing is are the mindsets and the hearts of people changing, right? Because me and you as Black men, what we can really ask people for is the second thought, right? Because the first thought a lot of the time is, oh, they're scared, they're going to do something, they're dangerous. That's the first thought. I want people to give me the second thought, right? Which is, oh, he's just walking, or he's just a human existing over there, and is of no harm to anyone around him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the second thought people usually have, but there's a lot of people that don't get to that second thought. Their fear, their prejudices, all those other things come into play before they can even get to it. And then
Right.
I suffer because they didn't have a second thought about it.
Like and their own initial programming, if you will, or indoctrination, steps in the way first. So, and agreed. So you asked, are people's hearts and mind changing? I would say yes, they are. And thankfully, for the most, I want to say for the most part, but true, I don't know for the most part, but I'll say for those of them out there, yes, some of their hearts are changing, and I'm grateful for it. We still have a long way to go. It won't. Once again, we always say it won't happen overnight. It's still not happening overnight, but things are changing for the better, and I do see it. It's a slow change, but it's still changing. It is changing. And we see that now. I hate it takes death for big changes to be made, but it's happening slowly but surely now.
And I just, to me, it's happening slowly but surely. I'm always going to acknowledge progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to live in a world where I don't fear going anywhere, and that's still not a reality.
No,
there's places that I will not go. Especially even after I left my hometown, I realized how dangerous things actually were in my hometown. Because I'm a country boy. We was on dirt roads and driving everywhere, doing whatever, right? Just having a good time.
right.
But take a right turn here, take a left turn there. It's Confederate flag over here, or like there's actually a hanging tree that's still up that won't get cut down. That's in the next county over, like 20, 30 minutes from where I grew up at.
You would think something like that would be ready to go, but no.
No, like, because people would say it's heritage or whatever.
Right.
No, it's hate and it's fear tactics is what it is.
Yeah, so I say things, back to your original question, things are getting better. Yes. All right. So once again, just rest in peace, George Floyd, and we're going to continue the fight for police reform, and hopefully this will never happen again, or to make it, just more punitive for those who take similar actions against just unarmed black men, just black bodies, period, unarmed men, period. It's not right.
Yes, sir.
Last, understanding what it means to be a man, or understanding what it means to be a black man in this case. Take me through your thoughts, Leo.
So, like I said, my definition of manhood was defined by the men I was raised by, and also the women. I don't want to leave women out of this comment. I know we're talking about men's mental health, but the women have played a significant role in my life. That, because my dad taught me about nature and about love and about community and all those things. And my mom taught me them too, but she also taught me the importance of empathy and of philanthropy and God and just giving people grace and mercy, and about faith. And I think just as a black man, having all those influences really helped me. And for anybody watching this, that's a mother, father, take the time to heal yourself and understand yourself. If you have kids, you can still do it. If you don't have kids, please do it before you have kids, because my parents, for me, just me, my parents were very intentional about the people they allowed me around, the music that I listened to.
Same here.
Just everything that was in my life, right? And it helped, right? Because it helped build discipline. It helped build my a healthy perspective of life and how I'm supposed to live it as a black man.
And grateful for it, yeah.
And I'm extremely grateful for that. And at the same time, I understand that not every man has that though. So that's why I try to spread my message and say things and just provoke people to think, or to actually just read a book, or to have a healthy dialogue with somebody that you may have an issue with or something, right? Because there's so much that's us over time, but I think if we all collectively just do one thing, if it's just saying, "Oh, brother, I love you today," to another black man, hey, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the one thing, just do that once a day. Say, "Brother, I love you. I'm glad you're alive." Or
Right.
or read a book, or try to have dialogue with your spouse, your partner, whoever you're with your parents. Go to therapy. Do those things.
Yep.
Because I think all of those, because there's such a distortion of what a man is supposed to be in this country, that we don't even have the opportunity to define that for ourselves anymore.
That's the key right there. Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
because my definition of a man, we intersect a lot with our definition, because I know you, but not everybody's gonna have that same definition.
Right.
Right. And I think it's on us as black men to say, hey, just collectively say these things are healthy, these things should be praised, these things should be encouraged, and these are the things that shouldn't be, and make those things cool. Like there's an author I read a lot of. Her name is Bell Hooks, and she has a book called "We Real Cool," and she talks about how there's different versions of manhood, masculinity, what it means to be a productive member of society, to be a true leader as a man, to just be my dad, basically. And as I was reading the book, I was just thinking, the man she talks about in the book, she calls him Daddy Gus, which is her grandfather. That's my dad. That's the men that raised me. Like, they were loving, they were caring, they weren't dysfunctional majorly, because they weren't perfect, but for the most part, they weren't dysfunctional. And the more we preach that message, the more we encourage healthy versions of manhood, the better off we'll be as a culture. Because, and back to social media, I'll say this, like, sex sells and dysfunction sells, right? So it's on us to say, because we have the power to change these things, because everybody follows what black folk do anyway. So we can always say, hey, we're not doing that toxic stuff no more. We're not being dysfunctional anymore. We're staying with our families. We're being more selective with the people we lay down with, the people that we call our friends, the people that we interact with, who we exchange energy with. That's really what being a real man is. That's really what pushing P is. That's what keeping it play is. Whatever your version of that phrase is, that's what it really is.
No, and agreed. Be selective. Know who you are. Stand for something. What they say, you have to stand for something, or you'll fall for anything. Know who you are. Know your roots. And if you don't know what it means to be a family man, a man, find those trusted, and I do mean trusted officials, a pastor, somebody that's important, a role model, somebody important in your life that you can discern, that knows right from wrong. Everybody needs a mentor. Find somebody who is where you want to be. And I'll keep saying that. You can't go and lean on your friend who's in a worse situation or not a great situation.
Yeah, like,
don't do that. Go find somebody else. There are other resources out there, I'm sure, for you to reach out to.
Yeah, and for whoever's listening too, if you don't have like a church that you go to, or just men that seek them out. You have a phone. You have social media. We're all on our phones anyway. I'm pretty sure you don't have to go that far to find like a men's group or
on Facebook. Right? No, there's a group for everything on Facebook.
Yeah, there's a group, and like big brothers, big sisters, my brother's keeper, like all these things, or just like your cousins. If you're like a mother without the father in the life, hey, that's fine. But if you have brothers, cousins, uncles, your grandfather, whoever, and if not them, somebody in the community is a functional man. Because contrary to popular belief, there has to be a functional masculine and feminine presence in the community for it to operate.
I believe that. You need both. You need both. Single moms have it hard. Single fathers have it hard.
Yeah. But you need
You
that
need both.
balance.
Yeah, it is a balance. Yes.
Mhm.
Like you spoke about your parents being selective of who you hung out with. Mine was too, and like I said, I can
Mhm.
be more grateful for it because it was protective, and I'm very grateful because I didn't have kids before I was ready for it. And I can be very selective about who I want in my life now. The music I listen to, I think that would have shaped it early if it had not been for my folks as well. So I wanted to type to sneak out every night, even though I probably wanted to,
Yeah.
couldn't do it because I was expecting her too much for that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But it just depends on what your life experience is, right? It's like
Mhm.
playing a game of dominoes. Like you never know what the hand's going to give you. You just got to rock with it.
Right, right.
And hey, if you don't got the best hand, you got to make it work. You got to figure out. You got to work to
Mhm.
to complete the round, complete
Yep,
the game. Like
and then you
figure
never
out your
know.
life.
Right, and you could win in the end. You never know. I've come back in dominoes. I've come from the bottom in dominoes. Came back.
Yeah.
But no, you're right, Leo. It's all about how you finish. Be grateful for where you started, but also once again, stay rooted in who you are. If you don't know who you are, read some books. Go seek out that mentorship to let you know your own of where you stand and form your own opinions on things. That's one thing for me. Form your own opinions on things. Don't listen to the news and let them tell you what is. Go fact check them. Go fact check. Do some research and figure
Yeah.
out why being a black man in America and having your voting right is the most important thing as well, or one of the most important things. So,
And I think one last thing I'll say is it's a black man that is emotionally intelligent and very securely confident in himself is
mhm.
a threat to every system that was made to oppress us.
Hmm.
So the fact that we're having this conversation makes people uneasy. Somebody's watching this right now and is uneasy because of how vulnerable we are and how outspoken we are about how we feel and we're just existing.
Right, right, and like always speak to your faith too. Like people are trying to hide the fact that they're Christian and Baptist or what you believe. Like I can't do it. I have
I'm
my
not,
beliefs. You don't
I'm
have
not
to love
hiding
it.
none of that.
Don't have to love it. But I'm gonna speak the truth too.
No, because even at that, you praise God how you want to praise God. I grew up in a Baptist church,
Mhm.
and I still praise God how I praise God.
Yep.
But I'm more focused on the faith part, not so much the the pomp and circumstance of it, the theatrics of it.
Right. Right. No, agreed. Agreed. Leo, great, wonderful conversation, man. I always say insightful. I learn new things every day from each podcast that I host, each show, and I can't wait to get this one edited and posted.
Yeah,
It's gonna be great.
and so it was great talking to you.
All right, so thank you for joining me for this episode of Black Mind Chronicles. I hope you heard something today that helps put your mind at ease about talking to a licensed professional, or to know above all else that you are not alone. This show was produced and edited by myself, Chase Jackson. Subscribe and download the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Black Mind Chronicles and on Twitter at Chronicles Black. Email the show at blackmindch@gmail.com. Until next time, this has been Black Mind Chronicles.